Alrighty then, let's go ahead and run the video for the regular traffic cop. This is the current status of the main build, rather than just the prototyping area that I use. Let's go ahead and take a couple looks at the various assets that have been added in. So as you can see, we actually have a bunch of low poly textures and buildings that we're using in order to flesh out the city feel of the game. We have gas stations like these, which have now been properly textured. This is the texture for the van that isn't being shown just for the sake of simplicity so that the stuff doesn't get too distracting. Here's the fences. Here's an example of the fully textured fence. Here's the coffee shop, the example of the fully textured coffee shop. The barber shop, an example of the fully textured barber shop. More buildings. Over here, the double stack burger and fries. So you have your burger joint. You have nondescript brown and black buildings. You have some kind of like brownstone buildings over here. Some kind of hardware store. And then some of the most recent additions for the later mini games. You can see we have a couple carnival tents to kind of go with a circus or carnival theme. Hot dog vendors, a ring toss, the duck shoot, which is decided through development to become much more like the carnival game than taking slingshots at wooden ducks moving through the sky. Here's a cotton candy stand, a balloon burst stand, another carnival tent asset, and the part up here, the part that's turning around, will actually be the alien invasion UFO. And as you can see by looking at it, it's a very low poly asset, and specifically that's to take advantage of the fact that we're going to be using a Oculus Quest 2, and the resources on the Oculus Quest 2 aren't exactly phenomenal for the purpose of rendering assets and keeping track of assets. It only has 8 gigabytes to play with. So we're trying to keep the various objects and vehicles and assets that we spawn into the game lower poly so that we don't run into any problems with rendering them all. Now this one's also a fairly unique one. This one was built entirely by Don Smith, and it actually produces the Ferris wheel. As you can see here, the carts actually rotate themselves and they move up and down slowly and steadily, which is nice because they're each an independent object, I'm guessing, and they're all rotating off of a given bearing as the Ferris wheel itself is rotating. So it looks really nice, and it's definitely one of the larger set pieces that helps sell the whole carnival aspect. Uh, so these are all the assets that we've developed art-wise. As you can see, the game itself is starting to look a lot more put together than it was when most of the stuff in the backdrop was just brown bagged together and boxed out. The roads are looking a lot more complete and finished. The next step would obviously be adding in the pedestrians and the traffic control portion for the pedestrians as well, which would involve a additional layer of complexity for getting the pedestrians across the street, which means more trigger boxes, more waypoints, the fun stuff. But other than that, the traffic controls work. Let's just go ahead and stop everything at the intersections. So the mechanics that we had previously still work. The car is stopping a given distance away from the vehicle in front of them with a varying length of that stopping distance. Ideally, following real-world traffic laws, they're supposed to stop a full car length behind the vehicle in front of them. As you can see here, due to the slight variation in the float that determines the stopping distance, you can actually see instances where it's less than a full car length. We did that in order to make it look more organic. And as I did in another video in my little test build area, I can set up a player target in order to get the thrown distance, which I've done but I haven't implemented in the main build. I just wanted to fine-tune and test the mechanic in a prototype build rather than attempt to implement something that don't work and breaking the main build, because that would be dumb. I went so far as to do it in a side build. So now that I've come up with the mechanic and fine-tuned it on how it works, I'll go ahead and start building it in towards the main build. But other than that, I just wanted to open up the main build itself to show how far along we've come with art assets, some of the animations, and mainly just give the artists the front and center attention here, because they've definitely done a lot of work to make the game world a lot more believable as a traffic cop scenario. One of the things that we're probably going to consider for the future build is, instead of just having this as an end cap and having it within player sight, is doing something to obscure it from player sight and putting the spawn locations outside of the player's immediate viewpoint so that it doesn't break immersion. But other than that, this is a very clean and direct indication of what we expect from the game and how we're generally going to make the game appear. So using the various art assets that we've already made, we're going to work on further expanding the level in order to increase the amount of immersion by putting the spawn and despawn points outside of the player's view, so that the player doesn't get ruined immersion during their gameplay experience. This has been Eric Marshall, lead programmer for Traffic Cop. Thank you for your time.